welcome to episode number 7 of The Witching Hour. I am Perri Nemroff, and here is my wonderful co-host. It's Haleigh Fouch. Haleigh, my favorite hour of the week right here.
Yay! Hey, guys.
I love every show I do here, but maybe it's because like that void, that hard-loving void in my heart has been there for too long, where it's like I need some in-depth genre conversation in my life very often, and I feel like we're just on such a similar wavelength where we do have our own unique interests, but it's like we always just like find that like middle ground with everything.
I love it. And it's like getting an hour out of the week to talk to a friend during the work week. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is such a pleasure.
We would do this anyway. That would just be more Prosecco.
That is probably the only difference. I mean, really, we've had. So you know what? We've had witching hours pre the witching hour.
Absolutely, hours and hours of witching hours.
And sometimes Dewey is involved. Dewey is an honorary member of this coven.
He needs to come in and just play around on the table one week.
He might be okay because there's carpet in here. I'm afraid. So I used to bring him into our other studio because I had the closed door office, which I don't have here. But anyway, if he did get out of my closed door office, there were only so many places for him to go. The office right now is almost like a gigantic warehouse, and I don't trust every like nook and cranny that there's not some sort of like, you know, an opening somewhere. Speaking of, so we were talking about having nightmares last week.
Yeah,
I think the most frequent recurring nightmare I have, and I'm dead serious about this, is I frequently have nightmares about Dewey getting out of the apartment and just like piecing out.
No.
I think I never used to have these nightmares until I made the move to LA. So when I was getting ready to move to LA and trying to find an apartment, one of the things that I got obsessed with the new apartment is that it had to be a closed hallway. It had to be a closed hallway because when I was in New York City, my apartment had hardwood floors, but Dewey liked to run up and down the hallway, which was carpeted, and he'd like paw the carpet and play around on it. And I had kind of trained him to think that was okay, and especially being away from my family and like Dewey's my rock, he's my heart, man. And if someone opened the door and he ran out and it was like out in the open, like, what would I do? So I basically got obsessed with that, and still to this day, I have recurring nightmares of him running out the door.
All right. So no Dewey is our familiar.
No. Oh, that was such a sad note to start it on, but it's a very real nightmare that I have often.
It's a happy note because Dewey's home. He's fine.
He is. He
hasn't run away.
He's home sweet home. He's living the king of the castle life because I live to serve him, and that is just how it should be. We live to serve you guys, though, with your genre coverage. And this week, our episode is largely about one of the biggest new horror franchises out there right now, and it's the Conjuring franchise. So, just to set the stage a little here before we jump into a Nun review, how do you feel about the Conjuring franchise thus far? Are you happy with the path that they're on?
It's been a journey. Like, I love the first film. I think it's incredibly strong. It feels like a classic horror film. And at the time that it was made in 2013, there was a real dearth of studio-backed, big-budget, classy horror movies. It meant a lot to see actors like Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson in these roles. And I love that movie, and it got under my skin. It wasn't a terrifying film for me, but it was tense and exciting, and yeah, I love that movie. And then nothing else has lived up to that yet in the franchise. I like the second one fine, but it's not on the same level to me. The spin-offs have been varying levels, but nothing has been as good as The Conjuring.
So it's like, after all that, what's your anticipation level like for The Nun? Are you looking forward to seeing it, or is it just like, all right, I'll take it?
It's all right, I'll take it. It's cool. I love the idea of a horror shared universe, and so I'll always see the new chapter in it. But being that nothing else has lived up to the standards set by the first film, there is a bit of waning interest for me.
I wouldn't say there's waning interest for me for some reason. I think it's because I liked that first movie so much in 2013. It was my favorite movie of the year.
Oh, wow.
I've said it before. I don't have the same likelihood of being scared to the point of something getting under my skin and then keeping me up at night with most horror movies. But I think what kind of like knocked me on my ass more so with The Conjuring than anything was how it incorporated the creepiness of this entity known as Bathsheba with the heart that the Warrens and also the Perrin family, those characters, brought to the movie. And I just thought, it's probably one of the very first in the wave of horror movies that we're getting right now that I think bridge the gap between horror fan and movie fan, where The Conjuring wasn't just about the scares. It was about the drama. It was about the drama of possibly something happening to one of these beloved family members, whether you're looking at one family or the other and them coming together and fighting together. I thought all of that was just so powerful that whether you call yourself a horror fan that seeks out the next new release or not, this was just a good movie that was going to affect you one way or the other, period. And that's what really stood out to me. And, I wouldn't say it completely lost that, but I think that every single movie that has come out in this franchise since then paled in comparison. And I think it's unfortunate that the first movie that hit theaters after The Conjuring was so good was Annabelle, because Annabelle is hands down the worst of the worst for me. I was grossly disappointed in that movie. So disappointed. So,
it's not great. Just as a throwback for anyone who wasn't listening, it's the only movie to ever use my fear of sewing machines, so I give it 1 point for that. But there's really nothing else to defend for it.
Yeah, so I was pretty angry about that, but I wouldn't say that I ever lost interest in wanting more Conjuring just because I was so excited about all the possibilities. Although I will say that I think I was more excited about the Conjuring franchise. Remember when it was called The Warren Files?
No.
Really?
No, I do not. I won't lie.
I was on the set of that movie in, I believe, 2012. It was an incredible set. It was the Perrin house, and it was pretty much built on the soundstage, and we were able to walk into the basement and everything. But at that point in time, it was called The Warren Files, and I believe it was with hope to continue it as a franchise, focusing on a different Warren file case for each thing. And something about the organization of that and focusing strictly on the Warrens really excited me. And, The Conjuring's fine. It's just the Warren Files. But I guess I can understand why maybe, if someone doesn't know who the Warrens is, what does that mean? But
I'm going to have to hard disagree with you on that one. I think The Conjuring is an improvement.
I had also, now I'm forgetting the name of the book. What's the Demonologist that goes through a whole bunch of their cases. I had read that before I went to that set. So it's like the Warren Files plus like basically in my mind making every chapter into a movie was very exciting to me. But anyway, with The Nun, I was looking forward to seeing the next installment, but I think that I'm not kind of jumping for joy like I once was. But I did see The Nun.
Yes.
I saw The Nun in Mexico City. So I'll give you this one disclaimer before I actually give you my opinions on it is this was an event. It wasn't a screening in a proper screening room or anything. So I thought it was an absolutely incredible experience that I saw The Nun in an ex-convent where it was thundering and lightning outside. We saw it in this incredible room where it was almost like what you were seeing on the screen was extending into the real world, and it had a really nice effect. The only thing that didn't work well for me in that experience was the sound wasn't that great. We're talking about seeing a movie in an echo chamber. So there were some times where, full honesty here, I didn't quite hear certain things that were going on. So, there's a couple things in the end, which, by the way, this is going to be a complete non-spoiler review of The Nun right now. Maybe later on, if we feel compelled, we'll talk spoilers. But even if I wanted to explain some of those spoilers, I think in order to be confident, I would need to see the movie again to fully explain that. So just wanted to get that disclaimer out there. But my general response to The Nun was, it's fine. It's fine. To give you a picture of where it lands for me, I would say it's probably right behind Annabelle Creation, which, that doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement, but I'll say I really, really, really liked Annabelle Creation. Right. And this movie, I think, was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad by any means. I think more so than anything, I was a little disappointed in the characters. I think Damien Bashir is insanely talented. Taissa Farmiga is wonderful. I love seeing her and everything. Their characters felt a little thin to me, where there's certain details that they drop about them that I wanted to learn more about. And The Conjuring and the characters in it, particularly Lorraine Warren, her experiences are so much about history, her history, exploring these things. And it felt like they kind of jumped from, one point to the next a little too quickly for my taste. And I don't think the mythology really came together as much as I wanted it to, but I will say that the connection to the Conjuring franchise overall is strong, and I really like that touch. I think one of the biggest pleasant surprises for me in this movie was a character called Frenchie, and Frenchie is played by, oh boy, I'm never going to pronounce his name correctly, Jonas Bloquet, I believe his name is, but I think I'm saying he was the biggest surprise because he was pretty much entirely kept out of the promotional material for the film, and he's the film's levity, but he is not the film's levity in a way where it's like, oh, cue Frenchie for the one-liner. It is very much baked into his natural personality, and the moments felt like they called for that, which I really appreciated. So I would say overall, I think my favorite part of The Nun was more so the atmosphere and the traversing the haunted house kind of vibe it has, more so than the specifics of what the evil entity was and what Father Burke and Sister Irene were about. So I think it was more about the experience rather than the specifics of the story, which I would much prefer a balance of both, because I think that is what The Conjuring achieves, especially with the way James Wan's camera moves through that house. But we don't quite have that here. Corin Hardy definitely has an eye for this kind of stuff. It's a beautifully shot and lit movie, and I think he does bring the most out of the scares at any given moment when he has that kind of control. It's just, more so than anything, The Nun felt a little light to me on character development and The Nun Valak development, I guess. Yeah.
There has not been a Los Angeles screening, so I can't do our usual pointer count. Oh, goodness gracious.
At the time of this recording, at least, I know some of you, by the time you're listening to this,
yes,
will have seen the movie. So, do hit us up on Twitter, chime in if you're on the video right now, and let us know what you thought of it. But yeah, that's kind of where I land right now.
I mean, that sounds about right with my expectations, to be honest. I wonder, for the Conjuring franchise as a whole, so much of what makes the Conjuring work is James Wan's style. He's an incredible stylist, and he is an incredible creator of creatures and characters and visually stunning, sort of horrifying things that pop out at you. But they all have had to stem from him. Nobody yet has been given the opportunity to create their own creature, to add something to the Conjuring franchise that wasn't sprung from James Wan's mind. And I wonder if a filmmaker might have better luck with a creation of their own in the way that the Conjuring creatures are his creation.
Well, that's a reasonable point. I mean, it's not a spoiler to say the Nun is Valak. We all know that.
Yeah.
And Valak is something that was solidified heavily in the second Conjuring movie. So Corin definitely had to play within those boundaries, and I think he did that part of it very, very well with what he could. It's just like I'm super big into mythology, and I appreciate that. And again, he does a couple of things here that I think are going to be like very pleasant and satisfying surprises to a lot of people. But over the course of just like the meat of the immediate story at hand, and we're talking about a battle of good versus evil here. Obviously, their characters are going to fight Valak, and I think the specifics of that battle didn't quite work for me as well as I think they needed to. But yeah, strong atmosphere, and in terms of like visual tone and style, taking the reins from James Wan, I do think that both Corin and David Sandberg have done that very well, where it doesn't feel like a carbon copy of them trying to copy James, but it feels like all of those films live in the same world, which I do think is necessary when you're talking about a cinematic universe or a franchise to a degree. But it also feels like they were able to do what they want enough. Or at least that's just the sense I get from both The Nun and also Annabelle Creation. Not that wasn't the case on Annabelle. It's just I dismiss Annabelle.
Sure. I definitely, again, having not seen The Nun, feel that they're not mimicking James Wan's style, but they are beholden to it in some regard. And, you know, there is, to some extent, this boundary of what a shared world needs to feel like. But then I think about, you know, the swings that Marvel has made in recent years, where once upon a time Thor Ragnarok would not have felt that it was appropriate in that world, and yet it does.
That's a fair point.
And I don't know. I just think there could be room to allow the filmmakers a little more freedom to do something more imbued with their personality.
Hypothetically, let's say we could wipe the slate clean and go back to 2013, right after The Conjuring came out. If you had to build out a franchise from that movie, what path would you have taken, if not the path they went on?
You know, I have to actually give them huge credit, because I wouldn't have gone the Annabelle route, which really essentially gives them a horror universe as opposed to a horror franchise.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly clever and smart money-making. I probably, you know, to be honest, would have gone the more traditional route, because it is the Warrens that have my heart, and it's them I want to see more of, and it's their story I'm invested in. And there's an endless amount of little creepy crawlies in their, whatever, not tank, their room.
The artifact room.
The artifact room. So it's a brilliant concept, and I totally see why they went with it. It's more just it does feel beholden in some stylistic regard.
I understand. I think about it. I think my side of it is that it's less stylistic and more just rules and mythology based. I think I find the frustration with them being blocked into something more disappointing in that respect, where it's like, you know, you have these creative minds that could do whatever they want, or I don't know. The Nun in particular, it felt like bottled up, you know. Like something wanted to explode out of it, and it couldn't from a storytelling perspective, if that makes any sense when you haven't seen it. I don't know. I'm so curious to know what you think after. But to play that game myself, it's like initially I would go the more traditional route too. And, you know, like I said before, I like the idea of the Warren files. So I would probably just page through that book until I've made all those movies. But the thing that's stopping me from doing that right now is Annabelle 3. Again, I applaud David Sandberg for what he did with Annabelle Creation, because to me, the first Annabelle was a flat-out disaster. I really didn't like it. I was so disappointed. How significantly he turned that portion of this franchise around for me is something else, because Annabelle Creation goes back to what I said I appreciate so much about The Conjuring, where you've got the scares, but you've also got this really emotional, well-developed story between these two girls and their friendship and their fight for one another in this dangerous situation. And I thought that was so powerful. But the reason why I'm backtracking on my original answer is because the idea of what they have brewing for Annabelle 3 is freaking genius.
That's great.
It is so smart. When you tell me it is the Warrens artifact room meets Night at the Museum,
it's great.
I can't handle it. I can't handle it.
But do you feel, I guess it depends on where it falls in the lineup. I guess if we're doing like the Avengers of The Conjuring, my question is, are there enough Avengers yet? Because we will have had Bathsheba and Valak and Annabelle. Are we going to know any of that? Are they all going to be new to us? I'm
kind of hoping, and I don't even know if this is possible, because technically at that point in time, Annabelle is still locked up in the artifact room, but I almost, I don't want any Valak in Annabelle 3. I want it to be strictly introducing new artifacts in the room, if that makes sense. Almost
that would be really exciting to me, because like I said, I want to see people originate their own creatures and characters.
And Gary Dauberman, he seems like a pretty creative guy. It's going to be his feature directorial debut, which will be interesting. But he's certainly got a lot of experience.
He does. He's New Line's guy. They trust him with their horror sort of implicitly.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. So weighing Annabelle 3 against The Crooked Man.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, Annabelle 3 is way more interesting to me. The Crooked Man had a really cool look, but again, it's phallic, and again, it's a James Wan design, and that is a very James Wan-y design.
Oh, for sure.
It's like the Wan-iest. So
I can't wait to use that in like an official review.
Yes.
I want it to be in my headline for Aquaman. This is the Wan-iest DC movie I've ever seen.
I hope it is.
So do I.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, The Crooked Man is starting to fall into I'll believe it when I see it territory.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time.
It's been a really long time. I don't know if we'll see if The Nun's an enormous success, then it'll probably happen.
I think early projections had it around $30 million, which is that's a pretty big number. You know, obviously it's not It numbers, which were like unheard of. Yeah, it's still a great number, and Annabelle Creation was a huge success last summer.
Yeah,
right, last summer. Yeah.
Was it?
I think it was last summer.
God, this is the longest year
in
the history of humanity.
It does feel like The Crooked Man kind of fell to the wayside. And when they first announced The Crooked Man and The Nun, I'm like, I don't want a nun movie. I want a Crooked Man movie. And essentially, it's kind of the same movie, which is a major reason why, even though I love the design and the look of The Crooked Man, now I'm far more interested. I think Annabelle 3 and that idea that they put out there has way more creative potential than figuring out another way to justify Valak in a separate story. Because I would imagine a Crooked Man story, again, would not involve the Warrens.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm hoping for anymore in this franchise.
And it's like, so not Annabelle. The Conjuring 3 is going to happen. That's just a money matter.
When?
Right. But I want James Wan to come back. I want him to do a trilogy. He's launched a lot of franchises, but he hasn't done a proper trilogy of his own, and I'd really like to see that. We'll see, because like he's going to be coming off of Aquaman, and maybe that's why it's on hold, because he's been so busy. But not that it's officially on hold; it just hasn't progressed.
Has there been an official word on whether or not he will direct The Conjuring 3?
As far as I remember, it was still TBD.
All right.
But it's been a minute since we even heard anything about The Conjuring 3. But that just seems like I find that New Line is far too smart in the realm of horror to not make that movie.
Yeah.
And they must have the actors under contract, right?
I mean, the only other thing I was thinking is like, what if The Conjuring 3 kind of became Annabelle 3? Because Annabelle 3, I mean, they haven't announced whether or not Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga signed on for that movie, but that has to involve the Warrens.
Well, I don't want that at all, because then that means Gary Doberman is directing and not James Wan.
Unless, okay, here's my hypothetical way to make everybody happy. James Wan does The Conjuring 3, because I'm with you. I want to see him make a complete trilogy, and I want him to maybe not necessarily completely close the book on the Warrens, but I want him to give them like a satisfying arc, because so much of what we've seen in those two movies, I mean, it's not just about the two of them being like demon hunters. It's about their relationship with each other. It's about their relationship with the people they're helping, their relationship with their daughter too, which is what's going to come into play in Annabelle 3. And I don't know. I want some ultimately satisfying capper, in particular on Lorraine's journey in this whole world. But I forgot where I was going with that now. What was the pitch question?
I
had an idea for how they both get to exist. So we have James Wan directing, in my dream world, The Conjuring 3, which kind of makes a complete-ish trilogy for the Warrens.
Yeah.
Then the whole Annabelle 3 thing is not just the artifact room meets Night at the Museum. It's also like Home Alone. So like mom and dad peace out, and June, her name is June, right?
I think so.
I think her name is June. She does something to conjure the other artifacts, and she's like a little demon fighter all on her own while mom and dad are away. But like, what crazy parents would leave their child alone in the house with a room full of creepy artifacts?
Judy,
yes, June.
Yeah,
where the heck did I get that from?
I mean, they're pretty close.
I guess so.
That I like that a lot. I mean, I don't like it because it wouldn't have the Warrens in it, but I do like it because I think it's a smart way to not have the Warrens in it.
Yeah. Well, they'll call home and they'll check on her. So like, has Valak come back yet? All right, you're good for a while.
We'll see though, because it might end up being grown-up Judy. you know.
That's true too.
Who
No, that's
knows?
true. I mean, I think, if we're talking about business smarts with the cinematic universe, if you want to open yet another side door to make it even larger, Lorraine and Ed pass on their know-how to their daughter, who now has a family of her own, and maybe she's utilizing the same tactics and fighting demons after them.
There was, this was from a while ago, but Peter Safran, the producer, spoke about the possibilities for The Conjuring 3. And this was about a year ago. He said that they wouldn't want to do another haunted house movie, and they wouldn't want to do another supernatural possession movie because they already did that twice.
Werewolves. Wasn't that a thing?
Was that a thing?
I'm almost 100% sure the last rumor I remember is something to do with werewolves.
Okay, that's a little bit much, but maybe. Maybe. Hey, I'm never going to shoot down an idea till I see it played out. That's hilarious to me.
That's true.
But I will watch that movie. Okay.
I guess so.
Why not? Witches. Let's make it Monster Squad. Let's get Drac up in there.
That's what I want. I want some sort of new Monster Squad type idea going. So, we're talking about just the Conjuring franchise right now, but I think that calls into question the potential and, who has seized the potential of horror franchises, particularly over the last, let's say like the last 5 years, because it feels like if we start going back 10, 15, then we're clipping the end of the 90s slasher craze, where we did see like a Final Destination kind of takeoff kind of thing. But in the last 5 years, there isn't as much as I thought there could have been, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. It's like the ones that come to mind. Really, the Conjuring is the biggest one out there right now. I would say the biggest new one.
Insidious is up there. Another James Wan.
But is Insidious even that big anymore? It's like, I think Insidious lost its crowd-pleasing touch after 2.
Am I making this up? I'm pretty sure the last one was their most successful yet.
Like money-wise?
Uh-huh.
I guess. I mean, I guess I'm, when I say that, I'm kind of operating in my own little quality bubble here. But where I think that franchise really lost its touch with 3, and then 4 felt like a little bit of a comeback, but I wouldn't say enough of a comeback that when I'm talking about the horror franchises that I'm most excited about right now, it's not. Insidious didn't really seize that potential like I was hoping it would.
I really like the first 2, but again, it comes down to when James Wan leaves. Is it as good anymore?
We're talking about the same thing again, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And it's unfortunate that I don't like 3 as much as I want to, because I think Lee Winnell is super talented, and Upgrade was fantastic, so clearly he can direct, but that one just wasn't it.
Yeah. It was almost the most profitable. Domestically, Insidious: The Last Key, the one that came out earlier this year, made a little over $67 million, and then the top of the franchise is Insidious Chapter 2, which at 83. So it's like, when you put so much into a franchise or cinematic universe or whatever you're working on, you want those numbers to keep going up and up.
Right. So they did worldwide. That's what I was thinking. It's the most successful worldwide.
Interesting.
Yes.
I always find comparing worldwide to domestic a fascinating exploration into box office numbers. But I mean, I guess then reduce the conversation to quality-wise. Insidious missed it for me.
I mean, I guess all the franchises that maybe not all, maybe that's too broad and I'm forgetting something, but the bulk of the franchises that exist outside of The Conjuring right now are Blumhouse creations. You got Paranormal Activity, The Purge, like these are in-house at Blumhouse, and now they're doing like Get Out 2 supposedly. So they're really good at creating franchises.
Yeah. Well, what's going on with everyone else? I would say it's pretty much a competition right now between Blumhouse and New Line.
Absolutely.
They're the big players, and I don't want to say. Again, I liked Insidious: The Last Key. I think they did a little bit of a comeback. It's just
it was solid.
It was solid. It's just I feel like we have a little bit of a lack of like pure horror quality that actually continues, if that makes any sense, or continues in a way that gets everybody talking to such an extent. It's like if it Chapter 2 comes out and it crushes it, like who knows if they're gonna wind up trying to force a 3 into it.
Pennywise Origins.
I don't know if that's the worst idea in the world.
It's not the best idea.
It's not the best, but it's like if you go into that book, they've got so many stories that took place with different but that's the other issue here. The second I say different characters, I think a lot of it loses its touch. But I don't know. It's like I felt like I grew up with so many different horror franchises, kind of like I didn't know which way to look because there was always something coming out. True. And I just don't think we have that as much anymore.
But I'm okay with it if it means we're getting a time where we get The Witch and It Follows and Hereditary and all these standalone really fascinating. I mean, isn't that what people always say they want? Is they want more original features instead of just studio product?
Yes and no. So like I'm always saying that. I'm always rooting for creativity over the easy money-making opportunity. I guess just I've seen so many great concepts in the last 5 years that companies have tried to turn into franchises or have turned into franchises, and then that concept that had so much potential to grow to me fizzles out.
Do you believe that there is a horror franchise in which it didn't fizzle out?
A very, very fair point.
I can think of one.
What is it?
Evil Dead.
That's a good point.
But
and then even jumps over to TV.
Exactly.
Never did fizzle out.
And I even like the remake, which is, we all have our preferences. But I would say that
I love the remake.
Yeah, it's really good. I just know that's a really loaded statement with some horror fans. But, pound for pound, punch for punch, I think that's the best franchise.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
But it's super rare.
It is. No, it's super rare. And it's, we're caught in that cycle. I think it hurts a little more because it feels like there's less of them out there right now.
Yeah.
Or at least less of them out there getting big theatrical, like, fanfare releases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like even when we were working on our episode last week and coming up with what's our most anticipated of the rest of the year, as far as franchises go, it's just Halloween. And I feel like we were at a point in time when there was always that next thing.
That's an interesting thing. Is it going to relaunch the Halloween franchise? And then if it does, where does it go?
That's where my mind goes. It's like I feel like we are in a little bit of a franchise, not devoid of franchises, but we're in a little bit of a lull. We have a light amount of them. And if Halloween comes out, like just hypothetically, imagine if Halloween comes out and it's not just a good Halloween movie, but it just blows everyone's minds to the point that I don't think it's going to make as much money as it. I think it's going to make a lot of money.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Really?
I really don't know.
I think the most recent projections I've seen were 60, which sounds like a wonderful number.
We'll see. If it's really good, I think it's going to have crazy legs.
Okay.
It's
got no competition.
From my perspective, on the website, the amount of interest is sort of like insane. Anything you post having to do with Halloween, people are so hungry for it.
I like hearing that.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, it overperformed exceptionally.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, nobody would have guessed it would have made that much money. But if Halloween, like, it doesn't even have to hit that much success. It could be a little behind it. And still, if that happens,
it'll still be a monster.
We could have like a major resurgence, not just of Halloween, but of everything else out there.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if anybody can get it together with the rights on Friday the 13th at this point. That might just be dead in a lake.
Yeah, I'm not particularly hopeful for that right now, but
I would love, okay, so the last Hellraiser movie was
I didn't do it.
A situation.
Didn't do it.
But an entertaining situation and something that kind of took bold swings with the franchise. And it wasn't a total swing and a miss. It was just like, okay. But it also was working with a severely limited budget. And so, like, the idea of Hellraiser coming back and really properly getting a, like, slick-ass movie.
I mean, that to me is one of the classics that's primed for remake.
Oh, my God.
Because like Pinhead is hands down one of the most iconic horror visuals out there. It's like you could sell a Pinhead movie to anybody who hasn't even seen a Hellraiser movie.
And especially if, there were those rumors that Clive Barker was working on something again.
Yeah, I remember that.
If that were to, if Halloween were to light a fire under that project, give Clive Barker more work, yes, please.
Yeah, and then let's like pluck the Child's Play one out of the equation.
Just that's if you saw me make a face, that's what that was about. I remembered that was happening.
There's another one that I think, you know, I wouldn't say it's as successful with from film to film as, let's say, Evil Dead is, but that's
a good one.
something that kind of embraced what it was and really just ran with it and stayed dedicated to like the essence of those movies.
Absolutely.
And has taken a crazy step further with every single installment. So I give that franchise a lot of credit too.
I love that franchise, and I'm really upset that they're undermining it and doing this
Have we
reboot.
not talked about this on the Witching Hour yet?
have
I think
not.
I'm just remembering like my freaking explosion of rage and emotion on, I think I talked about it on a mailbag episode, but
Gotcha.
safe to assume, given this reaction, you're as angry as I am.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
All right.
I mean, the movies, I understand from a studio point of view that they don't do the numbers they used to, but they've been so satisfying, and the last one ended on such an exciting note.
I loved it.
It was so good, and I want to see what happens. And I guess so, you know, Don Mancini has his TV show, so we're going to see it play out there.
See, but that's what gets me angry. The TV show, like the TV show being made, some of the interest and the intrigue and maybe the new people that would explore that world through the TV show are now going to be distracted by freaking Chucky 2.0.
Dumbass Cyber Chucky.
Well, what is that?
It's
What
not Chucky,
is
that's
that?
for sure.
It
Pretty
makes me
sure it's
so
Small Soldiers or
mad.
something.
Okay, I love Small Soldiers.
Yeah, but
I love
it's
Small
not
Soldiers, but it's
Chucky.
not Chucky.
I don't. It's so silly.
Yeah, it really upsets me. And, you know, thinking about the Child's Play franchise, too, I think that might be part of the reason why we have less, I'll just call them like fanfare type horror franchises right now, where it's almost like an event film frequently. It's because of the straight to DVD and Blu-ray trend, the rise of streaming services. I feel like some of these franchises are continuing. It's just kind of like under the radar.
Out of the spotlight. Yeah, totally.
And it's like we were talking about in one of our very first episodes, the 90s thing. And it's like, if you grew up in the 90s, it was constantly jumping from one franchise to the next, whether you're talking about Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Texas Chainsaw, that was continuing when I was in high school, Final Destination, it was constantly something.
Yeah, a lot of them we saw like fizzle out on their first run and then come back with reboots. It was an interesting period. How would you, I feel like I already know.
Oh.
If they were like, we're bringing
I will
back
play
Scream.
into your expectations. Bring back Scream.
Yeah.
I'll never say no to it. I think this is a more recent development with me where I started to learn to not be so precious about the things I love, where the things I love are the things I love for a reason. And it's because they have a lot of creative potential. And rather than be precious about something and keep new generations away from it or locked into what has already existed, you can then spread the love for that thing by taking some chances. Nobody wants to see a franchise that they love tarnished by like a shoddy installment, but if we don't take those swings, we're never going to keep these things going. So I am open to the idea of them bringing back Scream.
I guess you had like the blow softened by the TV show.
The TV show grew on me. How much of the TV show did you watch?
No, the whole thing?
Yeah? Both seasons?
Yeah.
My bigger problem with the TV show is because, like, you know, it's an MTV teen TV show, and I have a soft spot for things like that. My biggest problem with the TV show was strictly that it never needed to be called Scream.
No, it didn't.
It was a slasher TV show.
Yeah.
Find a different name for it. I'm sure there's a lot of, the Scream brand might help, but I mean,
Did it though?
I think I don't necessarily think it made a huge difference for it, but I do think that some people were driven to see that strictly because it was associated with the Scream
And
brand.
it did drum up some publicity and
Yeah,
stuff.
so I'm curious to see what happens with that next, with the whole reboot, like just
that was supposed to be out
wiping
already.
the slate clean and jumping in. But I will say that, you know, I've heard rumblings from, I would never go as far to say like, oh, I have a source or anything like that, but I've heard rumblings that, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone too, because it's an extremely popular, lucrative franchise, that the idea for Scream 5 isn't completely out the window. It's
Sure.
something is brewing over there, and it's not to say that it's something brewing that's going to be greenlit and fast-tracked and happen in a flash, but they haven't completely closed that door.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, it shouldn't surprise anyone.
What's interesting is that, like, it would be without Wes Craven.
Yeah.
And it would be, unless he changes his mind, which he's liable to. Kevin Williamson has previously said he doesn't want to do it without Wes Craven.
Yeah.
So without the two of them, then you're sort of looking at it in like a true reboot.
See,
like,
but this brings my mind right back to what kind of switched my opinion and my stance on continuing franchises is, I love Wes Craven. His touch on these movies is largely what made them special to me. But the idea of, like, especially if Kevin Williamson is involved and he can then take this story, the scenario that I love so much, and bring in a new up-and-coming talent with it. I mean, like, these are the kinds of things that bring new filmmakers into the fold in a great way. I mean, that's kind of what I'm wishing a lot of these, there's some older filmmakers who are getting up there in the years out there, and, sometimes they lose their luster a little bit at a point, and I wish they would focus on giving their resources, their talent, their insight. I wish they would put that solely on starting to cultivate new talent, giving them the opportunities that maybe they won't be able to find if they're just on their own. And, I just remember talking to Nick Simon, the director of The Girl in the Photographs. It was one of the last movies that Wes Craven worked on. And, he had such a great influence on Nick Simon based on my interview with him. And I want to see more of these genre icons do that for new talent.
I totally agree. And I think that I'm super duper not precious about reboots and remakes. I'm like, go for it, go crazy. I'm from the theater world. Shakespeare gets made every day across the world. My thing, though, and like Wes Craven means so much to me. If you listen to last week's episode, my first horror movie that sort of made me fall in love was Nightmare on Elm Street. Dream Warriors, not directed by him, but still from his franchise. And Scream was then later the film that like solidified my love. He's like, I owe everything to Wes Craven. I wrote an article about how much I'm only a horror fan because of him.
Did you ever get to meet him?
No. It's okay. Sometimes you don't need to meet your heroes. But that being said, okay, give it to a new talent. And I'm fine with that. My problem comes in when you look at the TV show and you go, if it's stripped of Wes Craven, if it's stripped of the screenwriter, how is it then not just any slasher? How is it still Scream?
Yeah. No, it's a very valid concern.
Especially in the age of post-Scream meta-horror. Like,
I think there is an opportunity to go meta with Scream with the movies that have come out since Scream. Where if you take the Scream scenario, and I think Scream 4 was kind of like scratching at this door just a little bit, you add in the opportunity to get meta with a new crop of films with all of the technology that exists now, and I think right then and there you could wind up with something that maybe ties into the actual mythology and the characters without necessarily needing to bring them all back.
right.
I think there's something there. Not going super hokey like Stab within Scream, but there's something there that you can connect the dots. I mean, really, the Scream TV show had it laid out there for them. All they needed to do was have a freaking killer that was influenced by Ghostface. That's it.
Yeah.
Make the mask Ghostface. Make that person driven by what they saw covered on the news in Woodsboro. Like, the fact that they didn't do that is, like, baffling to me.
I know. Yeah, I guess they wanted to make it their own thing, but it's just a slasher then.
Brandon James with his like freaking weird mask, making fun of it. I did wind up getting attached to some of the characters.
Here's the
but
thing,
that was
though.
ridiculous.
So, did you ever watch the TV show literally called Slasher?
No, I've never watched Slasher.
It's solid.
Where is that?
It's on Netflix. I don't think it originally aired on there, but it's on there.
Okay.
And I watched those two pretty close together, and I was like, they're not the same show because the characters are different, but there's nothing about Scream that made it Scream that Slasher didn't have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were made of the same bloodline, basically. And yeah, I guess we both are a little salty about the missed opportunity for the Scream TV show.
I am downloading Slasher.
Do it. It's fun.
I've got a couple plane flights in my future, which is just like always in my future. And yeah, I've gotten in the habit of saying to myself, 'Cause every single time I go back to New York, I take a red eye
Yes.
because I don't want to waste time. I don't want to miss a day of work, but I also don't want to miss any time in New York with my family. So, you know, most people take a red eye and they go to sleep.
Yeah.
I do not do that.
No.
I have realized that plain sleep is just plain old shitty sleep. So what's the point in getting it? So I just load up my iPad and I spend the entire 4-hour flight watching something.
Slasher's a good one. It goes down easy. What is it? Katie Findlay who's the lead? You can listen to her do her...
I'm like on the page and I should be able to see this really easily for you, but I have this weird thing where, you know, when you click on Netflix and you want to click on a show and be brought to its description page and it automatically starts playing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like my screen is being swallowed up by the show playing right now. Katie McGrath?
Katie McGrath.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, you can admire her American accent. It's a real stunner.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She's kind of known for her accent squabbles, but she's a delightful actress, and you will like her character.
Okay.
You'll just be like, that's not how we say that word.
Yeah. Sometimes I do get a kick out of that. That's a good drinking game.
Yeah.
That's a really good drinking game.
So get drunk on your flight.
Oh, that'll be great. I'll make a scene. The other awkward thing about my habit of watching things the entire time is, you know, I watch, you guys know, I like scary, bloody stuff. And when you watch it publicly on a plane, it's weird. It's really weird.
Gotta mind who's behind you.
Yeah, I don't do that as often as I should. I try, but yeah, it just feels fruitless. So, no. To turn the franchise conversation around a little bit, other than The Conjuring, if you were to pick one franchise that's ongoing right now in the horror genre that you're most excited about, what would it be? Because I'll tell you, my list has run very, very dry.
Small.
Yeah.
It's like I think all of the Blumhouse franchises have a lot of potential, but I feel like maybe they're tapped out in the vein that they're insistent on running in. I guess Creep. I love Creep.
Yeah.
And the second movie somehow took, like, the second movie should never have worked once you knew the truth of the first movie.
But it did.
But it did. They found a way to make that work.
Creep is fantastic.
Yeah.
Both of those movies are fantastic. And, you know, I've got a little list here of semi-active franchises. So Insidious is on there, but Insidious has no longer been something that I eagerly await
it feels
anymore.
a little creatively tapped out.
The Purge lost me.
Right.
Lost me quite a bit. I'm going to watch the TV show, but that one kind of ran its course for me. Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity to me is a trilogy. I will not pay any attention to Ghost Dimension or 4. I give marked ones credit, but that to me is a great trilogy.
Oh, man, which one was the one that had the rotating camera?
That would be 3.
That one's rocks.
I think that one rocks. I think 2 rocks. Just the way that one used the mythology and the characters they established and just ran with it, I thought was genius. And marked ones, I think, plays with that really, really well. For some reason, I think that one got a lukewarm response, but 4 and 5 are, no, just forget it. I was really rooting for the VHS franchise for a while, but VHS Viral is... it is awful.
Yeah.
And then one of the last ones on my list is Creep. I think at this point, rather than being really excited about budding cinematic universe or franchises, and like I'm not including things like It Chapter 2 here. Like
I was just gonna say, like, obviously, I think we're both really stoked for it.
Yeah, of course, and you know, I'm really stoked for Glass as well, but. I'm talking about something a little different here. It's incredible how many people just want to come into our room while we're recording. Everybody in Collider loves horror.
It's a very fun room to be in when we're in here.
Yeah. So I wish we got Roka's deer in headlights look on camera just now. Yeah. I'll take a picture. I'll take a picture of him reenacting it later and cutting it into the episode.
He's going to get some shit for me.
This was the worst thing for him to walk in on because he doesn't like this stuff. So I feel like like if I could just be Roka for right now, I opened the door and realized it was witching hour, and it's so like, oh nope.
No.
But anyway, just to differentiate, you know, when we're talking about franchise / cinematic universe versus something that feels more like the next installment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of not including It Chapter 2 in this conversation.
Well, can you really even call it a franchise when we've only seen one movie?
No, you can't really, but I think that a lot of my horror franchise interest right now, I think I would give maybe not The Crown, because I'm afraid that I'm missing something that's obvious here, but I think American Horror Story is back to being a winner for me.
Really?
Because even though I have been really pissed off by a couple, so it's like Murder House is still my favorite. Asylum, I'm not as into as everybody else, but there's certain episodes in that are exceptional. I really like Coven. Freak Show, I loved. Freak Show shit the bed at the very end of it and pissed me off and made me mad.
Yeah.
Hotel, I think is solid. Roanoke, I think, suffers from an identity crisis, but
Do not like
I appreciate the risks they took in that. And Cult, the most recent season, I applaud what they did there. That talk about a risk. That is a major risk to take, and I think certain things weren't tied up as well as they could have been, but for the most part, that one was a pretty big home run for me. And I cannot wait to see what they do in season 8. But that to me is the anthology experience at its best, where I love the idea of them bringing back super talented actors, being able to see their range in like such a small playground, but also with just how crazy they've gotten with themes and ideas and tone. I really just think that series is one that has especially long legs, because there is never anything holding it back. It can go as crazy as it wants, and Ryan Murphy has been doing that, and that's what keeps it interesting and fresh from season to season.
Yeah, I don't have as much passion for it as you do. I think usually it's kind of a trash fire by the end, but I always get excited every year, and I always get disappointed every year, and the cycle will never stop.
What's your favorite season?
Murder House.
Yeah.
And then I guess Cult was a pretty good one, but I wrote like 1,500 words last season about why I was so disappointed about how they started with something so strong and relevant and sloppy and crazy to be doing, and then just didn't do anything with it.
Where they veered off course for me with Cult is when they started to get into the true stories of certain characters.
Agreed.
That's when it started to feel a little off. But you know, again, I applaud things that are going to take big swings, because it feels like we don't have enough out there that's doing it.
I applaud swings, but I also applaud swings with an objective. And I feel that often American Horror Story, usually around the 5th or 6th episode of any given season, just starts swinging blindly. It's just like they've ran out of the story they wanted to tell, and so it just becomes another story, or it becomes nothing.
I think that is a totally fair criticism.
But I will watch it every year.
Well, the idea of this next season being a Murder House Coven mashup is very, very intriguing to me. And especially, it's like, you know, those are two of my favorite seasons. So it's when they do that thing, like they release promo images of the cast back together. It's like, I get, no one can see me what I'm doing on the podcast feed, but I just get really, really excited. I'm like, I'm back home with these characters, and I love that feeling.
Yeah, I'm excited. The picture of Connie Britton and Dylan, that was the one where I was like, oh, I missed them.
Yeah.
And I love her.
I love that. I'm excited to get the whole Coven back together. And I really liked that role for Sarah Paulson. And, you know, that was also a role in Coven where I don't think they really got to, like, the meat of the character. So I still think there's more of her to explore. But, you know, who knows what's actually going to be true with them playing multiple characters.
She's doing 3.
Yeah.
And directing. Very impressive.
I can't believe it. I'm so excited and happy for her. Similar to our Stephen King conversation, to wrap this up here, do you think the idea of the horror franchise or just like the continuation of a horror story or horror topic has more potential on TV right now than it does film?
No, I don't. I think like the horror story is obviously doing really well in film. The idea of the horror franchise, I mean, what we're seeing in TV, what's successful, it tends to be anthology driven. Like also The Terror is going to be an anthology, whereas if you look at something like The Walking Dead, it's really fizzled out and doesn't know what it's doing anymore. So I just think that here's my prediction. Because horror is having such a moment right now, we're going to get a whole lot of franchises very soon. We're going to see a resurgence. They're going to start out kind of strong, and then we're going to see the same thing with every horror franchise. It's going to be good. Second one's going to be pretty good. This is going to be not so good until the interest in horror wanes again, and then they die off. It's a cycle.
See, this is the thing, though. If everybody just figures out when to put a stop on something, that's what it seems like. I know. It seems like that's what the downfall is to most of these, is that no one just knows when to say no more.
Well, maybe they should start making anthology film franchises more often.
Yeah. No, that's true too. I mean,
keep the actors, scrap the concepts.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I was jumping back to VHS with that. I mean, I guess like VHS is something that could come back. Yeah. And it could be great, but
I'd like to, but like feature length anthology. Yeah. I guess, how is that not just different films? But
then my mind goes to something like A Quiet Place, where what if we're working within, one big scenario, but you're seeing different pockets? I mean, I guess that's kind of what they're doing with The Purge.
Yeah.
A little bit,
but there were definitely some direct sequels in the middle. I mean, so like A Quiet Place is actually a perfect example of what I was talking about, because I imagine that the second A Quiet Place film will probably be pretty strong. And then if it makes money, they'll keep making them until they're no longer really that rewarding.
No.
That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Because that's just how the cycles of horror franchises tend to work.
How do we break it, though?
I don't... make enough money to become a studio executive?
Good plan.
Yeah.
You close this out. I'll be right back. I wish.
Hey, we need ladies up in those exec positions.
It's true. It's true. Especially, within studios that are spearheading a lot of genre content right now.
I have faith in you, Perri. You can do it.
I can do whatever I set my mind
That's
to.
right.
My mom told me that. Any other points you want to make about the current state of horror franchises before we round this out?
I think we went real deep. I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of the most surprisingly satisfying episodes. It's just like everyone listening knows me well enough at this point, and you know me, that I have everything like bullet pointed, and I think I just go in like knowing the structure and feeling satisfied that I have some sort of structure, but this kind of went in all different directions, and it felt like a very thorough, satisfying discussion of it.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think.
Even though we came to the abysmal conclusion that we're stuck in this cycle that's never going to break.
Time is a flat circle.
Hi. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Do chime in on these topics. You can either hit us up on social media, or you can comment on the Collider Podcast YouTube channel, where if you're listening on the podcast feed right now, you could watch it in video form too. If you're watching on video, you could listen to it in your car, on a walk, wherever you would like. We are on the Collider Factory feed, so check it out there. Haleigh, where can everybody find you on the internet?
You can find me every day on Collider.com. You can find me on Twitter at Haleigh Fouch and on Instagram at HaystackMakeGroovy.
You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at PNemeroff. You can also find some more coverage of my... We never talked about the experience. Oh, all right. We'll say we're going to save the nun experience. I got to remember to come back to it when we talk about... we're going to have a whole episode about horror October Halloween experiences, so I'll toss it in there. But you can watch all of my coverage from the Nun Junket. We've got my interview with Corin Hardy, and then also my interview with Thais Farmiga and Damian Bashir up on the Collider Quick YouTube channel, and also the posts on Collider.com. Go check those out. That's all we got for you. You've officially survived the witching hour.